Have you ever, translated something perfectly in your head from Spanish to English, but when you said it out loud, the other person looked just a little bit offended?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that happens all the time.
Right. Like you totally meant to offer a helpful tip, but somehow your English made it sound like this strict, angry command. It's a terrible feeling.
It really is. You end up sounding, like a dictator when you literally just wanted to be a good guide.
Exactly. So, which brings us right into our mission for today. Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And today we are speaking directly to you, our listeners and students tuning in from San Pedro de Macorís in the Dominican Republic.
It's great to be here with you all.
Yeah, so today we are looking at a stack of your course materials, specifically your Unit 5, Cycle 2 grammar textbook, alongside some progress check notes and real-world travel scenarios.
Right, and the goal here is to help you master what we call modal verbs.
Yes. We want you to know exactly how to express necessity, meaning, things a person absolutely must do, versus a suggestion, which is really just a good idea.
Yeah, and by looking at all these sources together, we can figure out not just what these words are, but how they actually function in a real conversation.
Right, because context is everything.
Exactly. We want to give you control over that volume knob, I guess you could say, so you can sound natural, confident, and polite.
I love that, the volume knob.
Yeah.
So your textbook uses the theme of travel advice to teach this concept, which makes perfect sense.
It's a very practical way to learn it.
Yeah, so imagine a tourist is coming to visit your beautiful hometown, San Pedro de Macorís, and they've never been to the Dominican Republic before.
Okay, setting the scene.
Right.
Yeah.
They need your help to navigate the city. But before we get into the specific advice, let's establish a foundation. What exactly is a modal verb?
Well, think of a modal verb as a helper. Like, on its own, it really doesn't carry much meaning at all.
Okay, a helper verb.
Yeah, it sits right next to your main action verb. So words like go or eat or pack, and it changes the flavor of that action.
Oh, interesting.
It basically tells the listener how strong their obligation is. So, I mean, it's the difference between telling someone you have the option to eat here versus you are required to eat here.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. The modal verb, calibrates the action.
Exactly.
So before we can point our tourists towards, say, the best pasteles en Hoche or recommend a nice spot on the Malcon, we sort of have to lay down the law.
Right, the strict rules.
Yeah. We have to explain the strict rules of traveling, the absolute necessities.
And when we talk about necessity, we are dealing with zero flexibility.
Not at all.
Right. These are laws. These are like the strict requirements at the airport or customs. And your textbook actually introduces 3 primary modal verbs for this specific level of obligation.
The big ones.
Yeah, you can think of them as the big 3. So that's must, need to, and have to.
Okay, so let's look at the exact examples the textbook gives us for these 3. Number 1 is, you must have health insurance.
Right.
Number 2, you need to be 21 or over. And number 3, you have to get a passport.
So notice the common thread there, right? If you don't have a passport, you literally can't get on the airplane.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you aren't 21, you can't enter certain venues. So these aren't friendly tips. The speaker is turning that volume knob all the way up to 10.
Wait, I have to challenge this just a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
The grammar focus notes claim that these 3 expressions must, need to, and have to are totally interchangeable.
They do say that.
But is that actually true in real life? Because to me, the word must sounds incredibly formal.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like a customs officer reading from a legal document or something. I rarely hear native English speakers say, I must go to the grocery store.
Right.
They usually just say, I have to go.
That's a really sharp observation. And you're kind of tapping into the difference between textbook grammar and everyday spoken English here.
Yeah, because they feel different.
They do. Grammatically, the book is entirely correct. They all mean 100% obligation. You can swap them in a written test and you won't change the actual rule.
Okay.
However, in modern spoken English, you are totally right. Have to is incredibly common and it just feels way more natural for everyday obligations.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And must, well, it often carries a heavier, more formal weight. It's usually reserved for official written rules, street signs, or just dramatic emphasis.
So if a student in San Pedro says, you must get a passport, or you have to get a passport, the tourist will understand the exact same level of requirement, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But have to might just sound a little more casual.
Precisely. They both achieve the same goal of expressing necessity. You really can't go wrong using either one when you want to establish a strict rule.
Well, that actually brings up an interesting complication from the progress check notes.
Oh, the negative forms.
Yeah. What happens when we want to tell our tourist about something they are not required to do?
Right.
The book highlights the negative form with this specific example. It says, you don't have to get vaccinations.
And this is where native Spanish speakers sometimes get tripped up.
Why is that?
Because the logic of the negative actually changes in English. When you take the phrase have to and you make it negative so don't have to, it does not mean you are forbidden.
Oh, okay.
It simply removes the obligation. So it basically means it is not required, but hey, the choice is entirely yours.
Okay, so to make this visual for our listeners, imagine that a strict rule is a locked door.
I like that.
When we say you have to get a visa, that door is locked until you get the document. You have absolutely no choice.
Right.
But when we say you don't have to get vaccinations, it's like we just unlocked the door and opened it wide.
Yeah, exactly.
You can walk through it and get the vaccinations if you want to be extra safe, or you could just stay where you are. Nobody's forcing you either way.
That open door analogy is perfect for don't have to. And it's really crucial to contrast that with how we make must negative.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, if you say, you must not, you are slamming that door shut and locking it from the other side.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you must not means it is completely forbidden. So you don't have to pack a jacket, means it's your choice. But you must not pack a weapon means you will literally go to jail.
That's a massive difference. So our listeners really need to pay attention there. Don't have to gives freedom, must not takes it completely away.
Yeah.
All right, so we've guided our tourists through customs. They have their passport. They followed all the strict rules.
Good job, tourist.
Now, we want to step away from the laws and just be a good host. We want to offer some recommendations for their time in San Pedro de Macorís.
Right, the fun stuff.
Exactly. This moves us away from necessity and into the territory of suggestion.
And because we are changing our intention, we need a whole new set of tools. We are turning that volume knob down from a 10 to like maybe a 3 or a 4.
Okay, toning it down.
Yeah, we are entering the world of opinions and helpful tips. And for this, your text introduces 3 different modals. We've got should, ought to, and had better.
So we established earlier that the necessity verbs were basically equal in strength. Are these suggestion verbs equal too?
Actually, no. And the progress check notes are very explicit about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The modals for suggestion operate on a sliding scale of strength. So the message you send changes completely depending on which one you choose. You really have to calibrate carefully.
Okay, let's start on the weaker end of that scale then.
Yeah.
The gentle advice.
Right. So the gentlest tools you have are should and ought to. You use these when you just want to offer a friendly opinion.
Like a casual tip.
Yeah, you are essentially telling the person, in my experience, I think this is a good idea for you.
The textbook gives 2 examples here. You should try some local specialties, and you ought to make a copy of your passport. If a local told me you should try some local specialties, I wouldn't feel stressed at all. I would just, ask them for directions to the nearest restaurant.
Right, because there's absolutely no pressure. You're just trying to enhance their experience. Now, you'll notice ought to is sitting right there next to should.
Yeah.
They mean the exact same thing. They are identical in strength.
So, why do we have both? Like, why complicate things for people learning the language?
Well, English is a language built from a lot of different historical influences, so we often end up with these duplicates.
Ah, I see.
Should is definitely the more popular choice in everyday spoken English. Ought to is a bit older, maybe slightly more formal, but it's still very common.
Good to know.
Yeah, it's good to recognize it so you can understand it when you hear it, even if you just default to using should yourself.
Okay, so should and ought to are gentle suggestions. But what about that third one? The text highlights had better, and it warns that this one carries a very different energy.
Yes, we are turning the volume knob back up. Yeah, had better is the strongest form of suggestion. In fact, it kind of crosses the line from being just a friendly idea into being a serious warning.
Oh, wow.
When you use had better, you are communicating that if the person ignores your advice, there will be negative consequences.
The text provides this example, and it's written as a contraction. It says, you'd better avoid the stalls on the street.
Right.
You'd better, of course, stands for you had better. And I mean, when I hear you'd better avoid those food stalls, I immediately assume the food is going to make me sick.
Exactly.
It implies danger.
It implies a very bad consequence. So if we compare the two, Using should is like pointing to a lovely cafe across the plaza and saying, oh, you should grab a coffee there.
It's an invitation to something good.
Yeah. But using had better is like grabbing your friend's arm right before they step into a busy intersection. You'd better look both ways before you cross.
Yeah, it's a great visual.
You use it when you need their immediate attention to prevent a bad outcome.
That completely changes the dynamic of the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, if I tell my tourist friend, you better go to the beach, they might look at me like I'm threatening them.
Right.
Like, what happens if I don't go to the beach? Will you be angry with me?
And that's exactly why understanding the scale is such a massive leap in your language learning. It really demonstrates emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
You aren't just memorizing definitions, you are understanding the emotional weight behind the words. Knowing when to use should versus had better prevents those awkward misunderstandings we talked about at the very beginning.
Okay, so our listeners now know the vocabulary. They know which words to select based on the situation. But knowing the words isn't enough, right? You have to know how to assemble them physically in a sentence.
Oh, absolutely.
And this brings us to a critical part of the grammar notes.
Yeah.
The construction rules. How do we build these sentences without falling into what looks like a very common trap?
The trap is very real, especially for native Spanish speakers. But there is a single unbreakable rule to follow here.
Okay, what is it?
Whenever you use a modal verb, whether it's must, should, can, or could, it must always be followed directly by the base form of your main action verb.
By base form, you mean like the verb in its absolute purest state. No S at the end, no ing, and most importantly, no extra little words attached to it.
Yes, and that is exactly where the translation from Spanish causes trouble.
Right.
In Spanish, when you pair two verbs, the second one is usually in the infinitive form, right?
Yes, exactly.
For instance, to say you must go, you might say debes ir. And ir translates to the English infinitive to go. So a Spanish speaker's brain naturally wants to translate the sentence directly into English as you must to go.
Which is exactly what the textbook warns against in the progress check section. It shows this big red incorrect example. It says, you never say, could you get me a sandwich?
Never. You drop the to completely. The correct phrasing is simply, could you get me a sandwich?
Can you explain why English does this? Because sometimes, just hearing it's the rule isn't quite enough to make it stick in your memory. Why do modal verbs reject the word to?
Well, it helps to look at the mechanics of the language. Modal verbs are what linguists actually call defective verbs.
Defective. That sounds like an insult.
I know, it sounds harsh, but it just means they are missing some parts that normal verbs have.
Like what?
Well, they don't have past tense forms with id, they don't have egs forms, and they don't have an infinitive form themselves. Like, you can't say to must or to should.
Oh, that's true. I never thought about that.
Right, because they are functionally incomplete on their own, they have to attach directly to the raw bare root of the next action word just to form a complete thought.
That makes so much sense. They are like incomplete puzzle pieces, so they lock directly onto the pure action verb without any buffer in between.
Exactly.
So, applying this to our travel advice, we say, you should try. We do not say, you should try. And we say, you must have health insurance. We do not say, you must have health insurance.
Just by dropping that little word to, after a modal, your English will instantly sound significantly more advanced and natural. Modal plus base verb, that is the architecture.
Speaking of sounding natural, the source material gives us another fascinating layer here, which is pronunciation.
Yes, the linking sounds.
Right. Because it's one thing to write a perfect sentence, but it's another to actually speak it out loud with a good rhythm. The text specifically highlights these linking sounds.
This is such a great detail, because when native English speakers talk, they don't treat every word like an isolated island.
Right.
They don't insert a hard stop between each word. Instead, the words sort of bleed into each other. The end of one word links to the beginning of the next, creating this continuous stream of sound.
And the book gives us two physical examples of how our mouths do this naturally.
Let's hear them.
The first is using a tiny W sound to connect words. Listen to this sentence. You should know about local conditions.
Yeah.
When we say the words know and about quickly together, our lips have to physically push forward, which naturally creates a W sound to bridge the gap.
No.
Know about. You should know about local conditions.
If you are listening to us right now, try saying that out loud. Say know about, but don't pause. Know about.
Know about.
Yeah, you can literally feel your lips making that W shape. It's a physical mechanic of airflow. If you try to stop the air and say, you, should about, you end up sounding robotic and choppy. The W smooths the transition.
It really does. And the text gives a second example, this time using a small yay sound to connect words. You shouldn't carry a lot of cash.
Carry a.
Yes. When we push the word carry into the word a, our tongue shifts up toward the roof of our mouth and creates a re sound. Carry a. You shouldn't carry a lot of cash.
Carry a. It acts as a bridge for the vowel sounds. And mastering these small linking sounds, the W and the Y, really takes the sharp, jagged edges off your sentences.
It makes it flow.
Exactly. It makes your spoken English sound like music rather than a typewriter. It builds your confidence, too, because you physically feel the language flowing properly.
Well, let's test that confidence right now. We have covered the vocabulary for rules, the vocabulary for suggestions, the structural rule of the base verb, and the musical flow of linking sounds.
Well, we've covered a lot.
We really have. Your workbook includes a mental exercise to put all of this into practice. And instead of just reading it like a test, let's treat it like a real scenario.
Good idea. Let's imagine you are standing with your tourist friend in their hotel room in San Pedro, and these situations happen in real time. We have to pick the right tool for the job.
Okay, here is the first situation. Your friend is packing their suitcase for a day trip, and they are stuffing sweaters and heavy jackets into the bag.
In the Dominican Republic. Bad idea.
Exactly. And you know they want to buy souvenirs later, and they won't have any space left. So you want to tell them, you blank pack too many clothes, you won't have room to bring back any gifts. If you look at the workbook, it asks us to choose between don't have to and shouldn't to fill in that blank.
Let's break down the logic here. What is the intention?
Yeah.
Is the amount of clothes they pack a matter of law, or is it a matter of convenience?
Well, there is no luggage police coming to arrest them for packing sweaters. So it's definitely not a law. It's just helpful advice about suitcase space.
Exactly. So if we plug in don't have to, the sentence says, you are not required to pack too many clothes.
Which just sounds awkward.
It does, and it misses the point. We aren't talking about requirements. We want to offer negative advice. So the correct choice is the modal of suggestion, shouldn't.
You shouldn't pack too many clothes.
Right. It politely warns them that it's a bad idea for their own convenience.
Perfect. Shouldn't gives them the advice without forcing them. All right, let's look at the second scenario from the workbook.
Lay on me.
You are now at the airport with your friend, and they are walking toward the security checkpoint. They put their passport deep into their backpack. You need to tell them. You blank, show identification at the airport. They won't allow you on a plane without an official ID.
All right.
The workbook asks us to choose between must and should.
Let's apply the exact same logic. Look at the consequence. They won't allow you on a plane. That is a hard, non-negotiable consequence enforced by an authority figure.
Right. If they don't show the ID, the trip is literally over. The door is locked.
Exactly. Because they will physically be stopped from flying, this elevates way past a suggestion. It is a strict obligation. So the only correct grammatical tool to use here is the modal of necessity.
Must.
Yeah.
You must show identification at the airport.
Yeah.
Because if you used should, in that scenario, you should show identification.
Yeah.
Your friend might think, oh, it's just a good idea to have it handy, but maybe they won't ask for it.
And then they would miss their flight.
Right. Because they didn't realize the severity of the rule. So using the heavy intensity of must actually protects them.
And that is exactly why this grammar matters. It's not just about passing an English test. It's about navigating the real world accurately.
Well, we have unpacked a ton of material today, so let's do a quick recap to solidify everything we've learned from Unit 5.
Sounds good.
When you need to communicate a strict rule or 100% necessity, reach for the heavy tools. Must, need to, and have to.
Right.
When you want to give a friendly recommendation, turn the volume down and use should or ought to.
Yep.
If you need to give a serious warning to prevent something bad from happening, upgrade to had better.
Excellent.
And most importantly, remember the golden structural rule.
Right.
Always pair these modals directly with a base verb. No to in the middle, just the helper and the pure action.
And as you practice, try speaking aloud and really lean into those linking W and Y sounds. Let the words flow together naturally.
Yes, definitely. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about that actually isn't in your textbook, but it builds directly on what we just discussed.
Oh, I like these.
We've talked about how modals show the difference between a rule and a suggestion. But think about how power dynamics change this in the real world, especially in like business or professional English.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Have you ever had a boss look at you and say, you should probably have that report on my desk by 5 p.m.?
Grammatically, they are using the modal of suggestion. They are using should. But contextually, because they are your boss, are they really giving you a choice?
Not at all. In corporate English, people in authority often use soft modals like should to sound polite, but everyone in the room knows it actually means must.
Oh, yeah. It's polite packaging for a strict command.
Exactly. So the next time you are watching a movie in English or listening to an interview, pay attention to who is speaking and who they are speaking to. Are they really giving advice, or are they using a soft modal to hide a strict rule?
That is a fascinating layer of cultural fluency. The rules give you the foundation, but the social context tells you how the words are actually being played.
The power to communicate your exact meaning and understand the hidden meanings of others is all hidden in these small helper verbs. Thank you for taking this deep dive into grammar with us today.
It was a pleasure.
Keep practicing those sentences out loud in San Pedro. Keep listening to the rhythm of the language, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.